Hi, this is Marc Elias. I was just on with Nicolle Wallace on MSNBC, and we talked about the cowardice that has overtaken big law and the need for everyone to step up and speak out loud and clearly against Donald Trump and his attacks on democracy. Take a look, and we'll talk more afterwards.
But joining our conversation is voting rights attorney, founder of Democracy Docket, Marc Elias. He's also a former partner at Perkins Coie, likely the reason Trump is so obsessed with them. Andrew is here as well. Marc Elias, first, on the ruling from Judge Beryl Howell and a story we have come back to over and over and over again, where that path of capitulation looks even more short-sighted today.
Yeah, it was a great victory for my former law firm, Perkins Coie. It was a big defeat for Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump has put a lot of energy into targeting these law firms, and he has gone for however many law firms that have been willing to challenge it. And as you say, this is the first time that a judge has issued a final judgment. So it's nothing preliminary here. This was the final decision. But, in that opinion, there was a footnote. And judicial footnotes can be one of two things. Judicial footnotes can either be totally not important or they can be the whole game. And here, the footnote that Judge Howell included was the whole game. What she said is that, number one, we need to make sure that the law firms that stood up to Donald Trump don't suffer harm, and that that we understand the vital role that they play in democracy. But the second part of that footnote is it was a subtle message, or not so subtle message, to the law firms that capitulated. And basically saying, maybe your clients won't want to hire you if you capitulate to the government. I mean, after all, if you're not willing to stand up for yourself, what makes a client think you're going to stand up for them? And it kind of changes the business calculation. We've talked a lot about the capitulating law firms thinking they need to do this for good business reasons. Well, let me offer a piece of unsolicited advice to those law firms. It's not really good business if federal judges think you're a bunch of cowards. It's not really going to get you a lot of clients if when your lawyers stand up, when you and your lawyers stand up in court, the federal judges are looking down at them thinking, boy, are they pulling their punches or are they really giving it their all? So maybe this is a turning point where the business considerations for these law firms will motivate them to do the moral and the righteous thing.
Marc, I saw you on 60 Minutes last night. They did an extraordinary, as only 60 Minutes can, and good for them, focusing on this issue of the law firms that have capitulated. What was interesting is that nobody would go on camera. None of the firms that capitulated and none of the firms that fought. You and a young attorney who had left, I think Skadden, or one of the firms that capitulated, were the only lawyers in the piece. Why is that still the case now that judges have deemed the executive orders unconstitutional?
Because everyone's scared. I mean, everyone is afraid of Donald Trump. I mean, all of the lawyers, all of the law firms, whether they have been targeted or they have capitulated, whether they have signed briefs or whether they have, hid in the corner, everyone is scared that Donald Trump is going to turn to them next. And as I said in the piece, I don't blame them. I mean, I'm not an idiot. Of course I am nervous. Of course I am worried that I am in Donald Trump's crosshairs. I mean, I'm sure Andrew is worried. It would be only natural to be worried. But at the end of the day, I had a choice. I could either add my voice and say everything I possibly could to give other people assurance that there are people fighting and other lawyers comfort and courage to maybe take a little bit of a step forward, or I too could join the people who are just trying to blend into the furniture, who are just trying to back away. And I made that decision. I mean, you and I have talked about this now for years. We talked about it right after the election. I made a decision after the election that wouldn't be me. That the same strident and fervor that I brought when Joe Biden was in the White House and it was very safe to speak out in favor of democracy, that was more needed, not less needed now. And so, was I surprised that I was the only lawyer targeted by Donald Trump to have appeared in the piece? Yes. But I don't blame the people who weren't. I understand it. Look, I'm not letting people off the hook. I mean, anyone who listens to me knows I don't pull my punches, and I have nothing but scorn and disdain for the law firms who have capitulated. And every partner who stays there another day since their law firm capitulated has to look in the mirror and ask themselves, do they have a shred of dignity left that they are still there? I mean, after all, as you point out, the real hero of the story was the woman associate who quit Skadden Arps. She was a lot braver than I was. But I'm saying that I understand that there is terror and fear that Donald Trump is instilling in lawyers, in business people, in media figures, in academia, in universities. He is trying to intimidate everyone from standing up. I'm not going to back down. I am going to continue to stand up. I'm not going to bend a knee, and the chips will fall where they may. But I understand that I, as you say, am privileged as a lawyer, as someone with a platform to do that. And yes, other lawyers who have platforms and other lawyers who have the economic means to put up a fight should be first in line. But I don't judge them. I understand, in the sense that I understand the fear, in the same way that, look, Nicolle, I'm sure you get a lot of hate and a lot of negative attention. I'm sure you can understand that.
I quit Twitter, so I'm sure I do. I just don't see it. Sort of at a personal level, what is it like to be there? I mean, the thing about the folks that have capitulated is that there's now plenty of company and plenty of corners, and I imagine they gather in dark bars and think we don't get it. But what is it like to be using your voice and speaking out?
Look, I grew up the grandson of immigrants who came to this country because there was nowhere else in the world that would take them. And, I guess I always believed, when I learned in school, that the minister in Germany who said they came for the trade unionists, and I wasn't a trade unionist, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for the communists, and I wasn't a communist, so I didn't say anything. They came for the Jews, and I wasn't a Jew, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out. I believed when people said that they would never be that person who did nothing, that they were telling the truth. I believed that when people would read about the civil rights movement and the appalling silence of the good white people, as Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. said, that when we all said we would never be that silent person, that we would do something, we would speak out. I always believed that that's what we would all do. So to be honest with you, it never occurred to me when Donald Trump came along and when democracy was being threatened, it never occurred to me that when I stepped forward, that everybody else wasn't stepping forward with me. And sure, it has become clear that that is not true in the legal profession as much as it should be. But all that's causing me to do is to say, well, I got to step a little further front than I even was planning on, because there's no world in which it's going to be okay to capitulate to a man who says that he doesn't know whether or not the President of the United States needs to uphold the Constitution. I mean, literally, there's an oath that he takes that says he has to uphold the Constitution, and he's taken it twice.
Yeah.
All right, so those were the key moments in my conversation with Nicolle Wallace. And I think it's really important that at this moment in time, every one of us finds a way to use our voice, our town square of sorts, to speak out against Donald Trump and his authoritarianism. I do it by going on MSNBC. I was on 60 Minutes, as she referenced, and I got a lot of nice notes and comments from people who saw me there. But every one of us can play a role. Talk to your friends, your family, your customers, your clients about what Donald Trump is doing and tell them it's not all right. Post on your social media that you will stand up for democracy wherever you see it being attacked. And do me a favor by clicking on the subscribe button on this YouTube video, and you will be kept up to date on everything that is happening at Democracy Docket on YouTube. We have a lot of exciting new content planned for you. And while you're at it, you can also click on the link above or in the show notes below to become a subscriber to Democracy Docket's free daily and weekly newsletters. We'll see you next time.